Time now for your Week 1 fantasy roundup with the best in the business. Joined now by Jamey Eisenberg. Jamey, CBS Sports Fantasy is on and firing, and few headlined this week more than year 3 Kyler. He tears it up, 309 total yards, 5 total touchdowns, right around that 35 fantasy points in standard scoring. How impressed were you by Kyler and the statement he made here in Week 1?
Extremely impressed. Joe, you see what he was able to accomplish, and we wanted to see what, sort of the wrinkles would be in the offense with some of the new faces, and it really didn't matter because it was the old guys doing the heavy lifting. DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk with the 2 total touchdowns each. But it was just fun to watch Kyler go out there and, look like the guy that he was before the shoulder injury last year. He was on an MVP pace at the beginning of last season, and then right around the Hail Murray, when he had the touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins, it seemed like things sort of fell apart with that shoulder injury. But if he's going to run and certainly throw like this against a good Titans defense, but more importantly on the road, I think we're going to see a lot of big performances from Kyler Murray. And look, we know that NFC West is loaded. You saw Russell Wilson have a big game. I'm sure we're going to see Matthew Stafford end up with a big game. I think we're going to see a lot of great performances in this division moving forward across the board. I think we're going to see a lot of production, though, from Kyler Murray. Love what I saw in Week 1.
Sometimes you jump a little early, draft that quarterback. Your friends are taking jabs. This was an affirming afternoon for those in the Murray business. It was not all good for those top 10 types. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert specifically underperforming to their expectation. Your level of concern with those 2 QBs is where right now?
Yeah, I'm not so concerned. Obviously, you saw Allen taking on the Steelers, and that's a great defense. And I thought Herbert would struggle a little bit taking on the Washington football team. And look, he just had a little bit of bad touchdown luck. I think had they had a little bit more success in the red zone, we would have been talking about a better day for Justin Herbert. But I think both these quarterbacks are going to bounce back in a big way. You got another tough matchup for Allen taking on the Dolphins next week. Herbert, though, gets a dream matchup against the Cowboys, so I don't think you should be panicking on those 2 guys. The panic level, though, might be with Aaron Rodgers, after what we saw in that matchup against the New Orleans Saints. So hopefully he's going to come out and have a better game next Monday night against the Lions. But 3 of those quarterbacks that were drafted as top 6 options or 7 options when you factor in Herbert, don't panic yet. But hopefully there are going to be better days ahead. I do feel a lot much more confident in those guys all bouncing back after what we saw in Week 1.
That was not 12 like down in Jacksonville. We always tend to learn a lot about the ball carriers here in Week 1. Usage, workload, touches, how they're going to be employed within these given offenses. Who outperformed their ADP here in Week 1?
Well, the big one was Elijah Mitchell, with what he was able to, do, taking advantage of the absence for Raheem Mostert. That was certainly fun to see. But you see Joe Mixon on this list as well. I had moderate expectations for him. Somebody that I was drafting in the 2nd round. Could this be the breakout season that we've been talking about for Joe Mixon for the last couple of years? And after what you saw against a good Vikings defense, at least what I was expecting to be a good Vikings defense, the 4 catches is fantastic. Obviously, the 29 carries. Whenever they have a chance to play with the lead, you got to figure Joe Mixon's going to have an opportunity for a big ball game, and he certainly did that in Week 1. So great to see him come out and do that. And then for the 49ers, we're going to have to see what happens. Raheem Mostert battling the injury, not able to return. What's going to happen with Trey Sermon because he was ruled as a healthy scratch? Can he get back into the good graces of Kyle Shanahan? If he's not, Elijah Mitchell's certainly going to be one of the more popular waiver wire guys. But just keep in mind, you might want to pump the brakes a little bit because we don't know the extent of Mostert's injury yet. And then obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Sermon. If Sermon's healthy, ready to go, I would hope that he leapfrog Mitchell on the depth chart because a lot of people drafted him to be a potential flex option, maybe a potential starter at some point during the year.
And we've seen how they go about their business in San Francisco in years past when it was the Breida, Wilson, Coleman, 3-headed monster. So not sure that we can put all of our eggs in any one of those 3 baskets, that is. Flip side of that coin, you got a lot of fantasy owners right now who drafted running backs early wondering where their production is going to come from. Panic is a strong word with 60 minutes of tape in the can, Jamey, but who raised some red flags here on Sunday?
Yeah, I know we're going to show a few different names, but I'll bring up Aaron Jones as well, just with what happened with the Packers today. So I wouldn't panic on these guys just yet. Remember, Week 1, we knew it was going to be some tough matchups for some of these guys going in. You saw it Thursday night with Ezekiel Elliott. You saw it on Sunday afternoon against Aaron Jones. There's going to be some guys that just have some bad Week 1 performances. So just pump the brakes a little bit. Don't panic yet. We're going to see some of these guys bounce back. And Week 2 will tell us a little bit more about how things will go. Remember, there's some injuries that factor into not just the running backs per se, but also guys around them. But, we'll show you the names here of some guys that maybe struggled a little bit. Najee Harris, one in particular. I know the Pittsburgh offense as a whole didn't necessarily look great. I wouldn't necessarily get nervous about him. Obviously, Derrick Henry, look, this was just a bad game all around for the Cardinals, so for the Titans against the Cardinals. But 20 total touches, 3 catches. If you tell me that Derrick Henry's getting 3 catches every week, I'll sign up for that time and time again. Damian Harris had a strong game, but the fumble I think was a little bit concerning. And then again with Najee Harris, I think you look at just what he's going to still be able to do. Buffalo's defense is really good. I think Pittsburgh will bounce back in week 2. I also think James Robinson will hopefully bounce back. That was just a bad game overall for the Jaguars. The Texans defense, big surprise. Don't panic on these guys yet, but just keep your eyes sort of open just for some guys on the waiver wire. Again, if Elijah Mitchell does become the potential starter for the 49ers in the upcoming games, with Raheem Mostert banged up, we could see Mitchell as somebody in week 2 that you could be starting over a couple of these guys just in case he gets that opportunity.
Let's talk a little bit more about that 49ers offense and what we saw here on Sunday. Some breakout performances, Deebo Samuel specifically, Tyreek Hill here on Sunday, and Amari Cooper on Thursday headlining all pass catchers, but right behind them, Deebo stepping up, stepping out, and making his biggest statement to date.
It was great to see, but again, I caution people not to get overexcited about it because the Brandon Ayuk hamstring situation. So Kyle Shanahan surprised us with Trey Sermon. He surprised us with the Brandon Ayuk because he was practicing in full toward the end of the week. We thought, okay, he's going to be the one that takes advantage of this bad Detroit secondary, and it was Deebo Samuel. So if you're in the Deebo Samuel camp, this was a big game for you, and hopefully it's a sign of things to come. I hope the fumble at the end of the game doesn't ruin things for him. But we like to see guys stepping up and having big performances, and it was a great game for Deebo Samuel. But can he do that when we're getting more out of George Kittle, when we're getting more out of Brandon Ayuk? I hope Ayuk is healthy because he was the one that was drafted in that round 4 through 6 range. Deebo Samuel was more an 8 to 10 round guy. So great performance, but I would say this is a very, very sell-high candidate because I don't think we're going to see this from Deebo Samuel very often moving forward.
All right, so a possible sell-high there. Jamey Eisenberg always cautioning an early victory lap, and we like that word of caution here at CBS Sports HQ. Tons of rookies showing up here on their first Sunday as well, Jamey. Now, whether or not that talent extrapolates over a full 17-week or 17-game season, is another question. What rookies are you moving forward confidently with after what you saw here in week 1?
Yeah, I mean, I was nervous about Jamar Chase, not because of the drops, but because, first game, taking on a tough matchup, and the Vikings secondary, maybe I overrated them a little bit. But good to see that Jamar Chase can catch the ball and certainly can make some big plays. So that was a good to put that storyline to rest, and we don't have to worry about that moving forward. Devontae Smith, it was a great touchdown on a nice pick play for him to get in the end zone, but Jalen Hurts looking for him 8 times, 6 catches, 71 yards and a touchdown. So the nice thing about it, we could throw Jalen Waddle in this conversation as well. He also scored a touchdown. So the nice thing about rookie receivers is typically they start off slow. Go back to last year. Justin Jefferson, it took about 4 games until he got going. The year before, A.J. Brown, a few games before he got going. If these guys are doing this in week 1, oh my God, imagine what the upside could be. So love what I saw from Chase. Love what I saw from Devontae Smith. Waddle made a nice play to get into the end zone. On a day when we lose a guy like Jerry Jeudy and we have some poor performances from the wide receiver position, go back to Thursday night with Mike Evans, for example. Great to see these guys that you drafted, in the case of Smith and Waddle, as probably number 3 receivers, but in the case of Jamar Chase, a borderline starter. The fact that he came out and made plays in week 1, Smith and Waddle also, really encouraging for their outlook for their rookie seasons.
We want to talk tight ends here for a moment. Death, taxes, and Travis Kelce is your headline, but right there below the fold, TJ Hockenson making quick friends with his new QB.
Absolutely. This was a breakout candidate that I was talking about all offseason, and it was fantastic to see exactly what we thought would develop. This receiving core is not good. Now, we did have some guys make plays. Tyrell Williams, Quentin Cephas, those guys came out and did some nice things. And obviously, the running back's going to catch the ball. But TJ Hockenson, all the reports all offseason were he's making friends with Jared Goff. The rapport is strong. And that friendship carried over to that matchup against 49ers, which I thought was going to be a little tough. But Hockenson, great touchdown reception, had a 2-point conversion, was making plays all over the field. This is the breakout tight end this year, and he is so far delivering in his week 1 performance. Now, you flip that and you say, okay, Kyle Pitts was also supposed to be a breakout candidate. Are we going to panic on Kyle Pitts? I wouldn't go that far yet. I think there's still a big season ahead of him. Obviously, the Eagles were doing their due diligence to try and take him out of the game. But TJ Hockenson had a great performance. And one guy to keep an eye on from a waiver wire perspective, Jawan Johnson for the Saints. We thought maybe Adam Troutman would be the guy that benefits as that red zone target. Jawan Johnson, 2 touchdowns from Jameis Winston. Of the 5 that he threw, another quarterback that certainly deserves mention. Jawan Johnson, 3% roster percentage on CBS Sports right now. Going to be one of the more popular free agents going into Tuesday.
And that right there is the best case to get fantasy football today in your ears. You too would have been in on TJ Hockenson. We got to talk about some of this Monday Night Football action here, Jamey. Who can save my week? We got a lot of highly drafted candidates in this matchup, whether it's the quarterback on Baltimore's side, the tight end over there with the Raiders. I got to be expecting some big numbers here when we close out week 1.
I think it's going to be mostly on the Baltimore side of things. But, Joe, you brought up something before we went on air about Josh Jacobs and fantasy managers that are looking at him and maybe being downgraded to questionable with, whatever he's dealing with. So if you got to look to the waiver wire, hopefully you could maybe move Jacobs into a flex spot. But if not, if you got to go to the running back position, we know the Baltimore running back situation is in flux right now. Now, I do expect Tyson Williams to be the guy. But Latavius Murray is at 68% roster percentage right now. Le'Veon Bell could be somebody that you're looking at in a desperation play. Trenton Cannon maybe be somebody that the Ravens have to lean on because they don't necessarily want to give Tyson Williams all the work, and they're not going to trust Murray or Bell right away. And Cannon could have an opportunity to make some plays. So in a desperate situation, if you don't have Kenyon Drake, you don't have Tyson Williams, you might not have Josh Jacobs, look at one of these running backs. But I think also we're going to see a couple of the Raiders receivers step up. Now, Marquise Brown is the headliner of the receivers of both these teams, aside from the tight ends. We know that Darren Waller and Mark Andrews are the two best pass catchers. Marquise Brown's third. But let's see what Henry Ruggs does. Let's see what Bryan Edwards does. And Edwards is probably available in a ton of leagues. So if you are stuck, go take a flyer on Bryan Edwards. Remember, Marcus Peters, everybody's talking about Gus Edwards tearing his ACL. Marcus Peters tore his ACL as well. He's out for the season. So the secondary for Baltimore, not the same. We could see Derek Carr having to throw a lot, especially if Josh Jacobs doesn't play. Then you see situations where Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards step up. Edwards could be a very popular waiver wire candidate when we get to Tuesday.
Nobody better, that is, at talking talent than our guy, Jamey Eisenberg. Thank you, Jamey.
Thanks, Joe.
Oh, there are moves to be made, and there's only one way to get in the know. That's with our guys on Fantasy Football Today. Jamey Eisenberg and our full team of fantasy expert analysts break down all the latest happenings across the NFL, waiver wire pickups, everything you need to know to win your league. Download, subscribe, and enjoy Fantasy Football Today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.